Okay, so dear students, so in this lecture I will be talking about the next part of the metabolism. So if you remember in the last lecture I talked about the different kind of molecules or different kind of nutrients that are required by the microbes. So those kind of nutrients, they should be first taken up by the organisms. So the very first step in nutrient use by the microbe is the uptake. So uptake mechanism, they must be specific. So we don't need that lot of things they should be taken up by the microbes. What is required is that only selective molecules or nutrients which can be digested or which can be taken up by the organisms, they should be taken up. We want only those nutrients which can be assimilated, which can be digested by the microorganism. They should only be taken up. It's not that unnecessary stuff should be taken up. So it has to be really specific. Now there's one important point is that microorganisms, they often live in nutrient poor habitats. For example, microbes are living in ponds, they're living on rocks, onto the surface of plants, body, parts of animals. So those are the niches or those are the habitats where there's scarcity of nutrients. So they need to have a system which is quite capable of taking up nutrients from those kind of habitats. So microorganisms, they make use of several different transport mechanisms. It's not only that one system or one mechanism is good enough. They need several mechanisms depending on the place where they are growing. So one of the methods is the passive diffusion. So molecules move from a region of higher concentration to one of lower concentration. So now this particular kind of diffusion depends on the concentration. So the rate of diffusion depends on the size of the concentration gradient between a cell's exterior and its interior. So if the concentration is quite high at the outside of the bacterial cell, then definitely there will be movement of molecules, movement of nutrients inside the bacteria. If the concentration is low as compared to bacteria, then there will be no diffusion, or the diffusion will continue in case of higher to lower until a equilibrium is maintained. So unless the nutrient is immediately used up upon the entry, the rate of diffusion decreases as more nutrients accumulate in the cell. So till the point the equilibrium kind of thing is maintained, the movement of nutrient will be there. So usually small molecules such as water, oxygen and carbon dioxide, they are taken up by this particular method. So now there's another method which is called the facilitated diffusion. So this is also a kind of diffusion, but here there is involvement of a carrier protein. So this carrier protein allows or favors the movement of the molecules. For example, permeases, this is involved in movement across the cell membrane in the bacteria. So now the rate of diffusion using this facilitated, it is also depending on the concentration gradient. So if there is concentration gradient, then only this will be working. So each carrier is selective and transports only closely related solutes. So for this particular kind of facilitated diffusion, there has to be different kind of proteins present in the bacterial membrane. So for example, if there is a protein which can only transport A, then it will only transport A, it will not transport nutrient B. For nutrient B, we need another carrier molecule. So what I mean to say is that if somebody wants to transfer 50 molecules, then there are 15 different kind of carrier proteins are required. Or they can only transfer which are very closely related molecules. A concentration gradient spanning the membrane drives the movement of molecules. So in this particular case also, there has to be a concentration gradient which can facilitate the movement of molecules or nutrients from the outside to the inner side of the cell membrane. So the gradient can be maintained by transforming the transported nutrient to another compound. Now this is also one important point. So let's say there is a scenario where the molecules are already at a lower concentration and they are taken up by the bacteria and an equilibrium has been obtained. So now the bacteria cannot take up more molecules. However, it requires them. So in that particular case, the easiest thing that that particular bacteria can do is that it can modify those molecules to some other form. So it can go for phosphorylation of that particular molecule, or it can totally degrade or break down into a different molecules. So as it degrades or changes its conformation, then the concentration will be less as compared to outside, and the uptake will keep on increasing. So two most widespread major interesting protein channels in bacteria are aquaporins. So these aquaporins, they transport water and glycerol. So they are usually responsible for the movement of diffusion of glycerol. So let's have a look at this particular graph. So in this particular graph, there are two things: concentration gradient and the rate of transport. So if the concentration increases, then the rate of transport kind of directly proportional in case of passive diffusion. However, in case of facilitated diffusion, initially the movement is rapid and after some time it reaches a plateau. So what I mean to say is that once it reaches plateau, then even if you increase the concentration gradient, it doesn't matter. So this dependence of the diffusion is usually related to the solute molecules. However, when there is only passive diffusion, it will keep on increasing. But here in kind of facilitator, there is some kind of saturation which kind of occurs after some specific time, and flattening of the curves takes place. So this is a typical model of facilitated diffusion. So in this is a membrane carrier protein, which is inside the cell membrane. So you can see that these molecules, they can be taken up by the molecule, and there has to be some conformation change in molecule which will facilitate the movement of molecules inside the cell. So this change in the orientation or the position of this particular protein facilitate the movement of the molecules from outside to the inside. So usually this kind of facilitated diffusion could be one example in case of glycerol. So now there's another mechanism of transport which is known as the active transport. So microorganisms, as I told you, they often live in habitats which are very poor in terms of nutrient. So although already the concentration is really low, now the microbes, they cannot take up, or the movement of molecules cannot take up by simple diffusion. So there are two different processes of active transport, which are known as active transport or group translocation. So both of these methods or both of these processes are energy dependent processes. So active transport, it is the transport of solute molecules to higher concentration, or simply we can say it is the movement of molecules against a concentration gradient. But now, since this is against the concentration gradient, there is an input of metabolic energy which is required. So since these microbes, they are already growing in an energy deficient or nutrient deficient area, so we can expect that the concentration of metabolites or molecules is already high in the bacteria. So if they want to absorb something from an area which is low in concentration, then of course the work has to be done against the gradient. So in this particular case, we need energy. So active transport differs from facilitated diffusion in its use of metabolic energy. So in case of diffusion as well as the facilitated diffusion, there was no input of energy, while in this particular case, there is input of energy as we are working against the concentration gradient. Now there's something called the metabolic inhibitors. They usually block the energy production, and that inhibit the active transport, as we know that the energy is required for the movement of molecules against the concentration gradient, and if there is no energy production inside the cell, so there will be no energy available for the transport system also. So if we have anything which is kind of blocking the metabolic activity of the bacteria, so that would in turn lead to the inhibition of the active transport of the molecules. However, it is not immediately, it will take place after some time till all the energy available has been utilized. So this is a typical diagram which is showing the ABC transporters, that is the ATP binding cassette transporters. So this is a protein which is a hydrophobic protein embedded into the bacterial membrane. So it has two domains, and this is attached attached to it are the ATP binding domains. There are two ATP binding domains. So, and initially this particular kind of a protein doesn't allow the movement of solutes. So when there is a ATP binding and converting to ADP, which is, by dephosphorylation, this provides energy for these subunits, which later leads to the conformational change in the protein, this transporter protein, and that facilitates the uptake. So depending on what is the availability of ATP, how much is the amount, how much quantity is available, this can keep on going on and on. So once this process is going on, then there will be sufficient uptake of solute binding proteins inside the cell. Now there's another one which is called the active transport using the proton and sodium gradients. Now here we have two terms, which is one is the symport, another is the antiport. Symport is transport of two substances in the same direction. So this is kind of done by one of the enzymes, which is protein, which is permease. So transport lactose molecules inward along with the proton. Antiport is transport is opposite directions. So let's have a look at this particular diagram. So this is the cell membrane. So here we have, this is the inside of the cell and this is the exterior of the cell. So usually protons, they are pumped outside of the plasma membrane during the electron transport. So this are pumped outside, and the proton gradient also derives the movement of sodiums by the antiport mechanism. So these are pumped outside and the movement, they are going inside, and later sodium is going outside. Now this particular sodium, it binds to the carrier protein complex. So after binding to this particular carrier protein complex, there is some conformational change, which if you can see here, this particular groove is square shaped and now this becomes spherical. So this conformal binding of sodium to this particular groove leads to the conformational change in that protein, which facilitates the binding of the sugar molecules. So once this particular binding takes place, then it is automatically taken up by the cell. So this particular binding or uptake of the sodium along with the glucose is the example of symport. Now there's another term which is called the group translocation. So this is the mechanism which usually takes place in the bacteria, where the chemical modification of the molecules takes place as it is taken inside the cell. So this is also a type of active transport as metabolic energy is used. So one of the most common system is the phosphoenol pyruvate sugar phosphotransferase system, which is observed in bacteria. So the PTS transports a variety of sugars while phosphorylating them. So here the phosphoenol pyruvate acts as a phosphate donor. So phosphoenol pyruvate binds to sugar which is present outside, that converts into pyruvate and gives to sugar phosphatase. So this phosphorylation leads to the uptake. So since phosphoenol pyruvate is a high energy molecule, it can be used to synthesize ATP. However, here in this particular case, this phosphoenol pyruvate is only used to energize the uptake of the molecules. So in a way, this is only doing the phosphorylation step. So several carbohydrates, they are transported using this PTS transport mechanism. In E. coli, uptake of glucose, fructose, mannitol, sucrose, N-acetyl glucosamine, cellobiose, and other carbohydrates is done by the translocation. So let's have a look at this particular diagram, which is kind of depicting the bacterial PTS transport. So here it contains of a couple of units. One is the phosphoenol pyruvate. Another one is the protein, which is enzyme first. Then we have this enzyme second. And then we have this heat stable protein. So this enzyme first, it is only a single domain protein. And this heat stable protein is quite stable protein. And then we have this enzyme second A. It is consisting of 3 subdomains. So second A is a soluble domain which is attached along with the second B, and this second B is attached with the hydrophobic domain which is embedded into the cellular membrane. So now what is happening is that this phosphoenol pyruvate, it converts to pyruvate. This leads to the phosphorylation of enzyme first, and this phosphorylation of enzyme converts the heat stable protein and leads to the phosphorylation of that heat stable protein. So now from here, we can have uptake of two different molecules. So this heat stable protein can lead to the phosphorylation of enzyme second A. Now this second enzyme A can lead to the phosphorylation of attached enzyme second B, and ultimately this phosphorylation leads to the uptake of mannitol via second C. This mannitol is converts to mannitol 1 phosphate. Or it could be possible that this heat stable protein leads to phosphorylation of second A, second B, followed by uptake of glucose. So this glucose is also converted to glucose 6 phosphate. So this is how this group translocation system works. So now there's another thing, that the iron uptake. So in bacteria, iron uptake is required and it is used in cytochromes and different kind of enzymes. Now there's one problem with the iron, that it is difficult to dissolve. So it has the insolubility because of the presence of ferric ions and its derivatives. So many bacteria and fungi, in order to facilitate the uptake of this ferric ions, they secrete something called siderophores. So these are low molecular weight organic molecules that bind the ferric ion and allow the uptake to the cell. So these siderophores are ferrichromes, for example, which is produced by many fungi, and enterobactin, which is found by E. coli. So these microorganisms, they secrete siderophores when iron is very low in the cell media, where the bacteria is suspended or it is growing. So when there is uptake of iron required, the siderophores are secreted. These bind to the ferric ions, and these ferric ions are then reduced to ferrous once they are taken up by the cell. So this is a typical depiction of the two molecules, ferrichrome and the enterobactin. So this ferrichrome is a cyclic hydroxymate molecule found by many fungi. E. coli produces the cyclic catechol derivative enterobactin. So one of the ferric ion, it binds to 3 molecules of enterobactin. It makes a 6 coordinate kind of thing, an octahedral complex, and this facilitates the uptake. So once taken up by the cell, this ferric ion converts into ferrous. So this is all I wanted to talk about this uptake or the transport mechanism. So thank you very much for your time.